Well, thank you very much, Chair Shaheen, and to Ranking Member Moran. I think everybody on this dais knows really well that Senator Collins and I are returning this committee to regular order, and I couldn't ask for two better members to help steer this committee through, so thank you for the work you're doing to get that done. I think we all realize we have a responsibility to get these funding bills done in a timely bipartisan way that really makes sure our country and our communities have the resources they need to keep people safe. It is no small task, and so I'm glad to have both of you partners in getting this done. And as I think this discussion today makes clear, keeping our families safe doesn't just mean having a strong military. Obviously, that's important, but it also means having a fair, functioning system of justice and safe communities. We can't keep our families safe from threats like drug trafficking that is bringing the deadly fentanyl in, or white supremacy and the uptick in hate crimes, without investing in effective law enforcement. And as we saw yesterday with the devastating shooting in Nashville, I think it's all too clear we have to do more to protect our kids and our families and our communities from gun violence, which will require us to, of course, do more to strengthen our laws, but it also requires the resources we need to carry out the laws we already have on the books and keep guns away from violent criminals. And you know, we have made some progress to support state red flag laws to protect survivors of domestic abuse. We have to do a lot better for women, and that includes in our indigenous communities where so many violent crimes against women have gone unsolved. This is something I'm really focused on, making sure that this unacceptable injustice on tribal lands is met with strong work from our country now. And of course, we can't forget that we aren't protecting our families unless we're also supporting the Civil Rights Division in fighting against bigotry and discrimination. And we can't keep our democracy a democracy if we're not protecting Americans' most basic rights, the right to use your voice, the right to vote, and I also clearly mean the right for women in every corner of our country to get the health care and family planning services that they need. So these are really important challenges, and to meet them, we need strong investments in the critical work of this subcommittee. So we've got a lot of work ahead of that. So Attorney General Garland, thank you for being here. I do have a few questions. One of them on your budget was I was really glad to see an increase in the Office for Violence Against Women. I have long advocated for improvements in VAWA grants, including the special tribal criminal jurisdiction, so Indigenous women and children and survivors can seek justice in our courts. I also authored and got signed into law legislation to make sure survivors of sexual assault can get medical exams when they need to be able to seek justice. So I wanted to ask you today, can you walk me through what your proposed budget does for investments in these critical areas?
Right. So for the Office of Violence Against Women, we're asking for $1 billion, which is a $300 million increase over the previous enacted appropriation. This includes what you just mentioned, $20 million in a new program for access to sexual assault nurse exams. It includes $147 million for reducing the DNA backlog for rape kits. This includes both Violence Against Women Act and Office of Justice Programs funds. Collecting DNA, forensic research, training, testing, includes money for the Debbie Smith DNA backlog grant program. Then it includes $300 million, which is a $45 million increase in grants to combat violence against women, the so-called STOP Act. $100 million for sexual assault services, which is a $21.5 million increase. That's for rape centers and for non-governmental organizations that provide crisis intervention and victim assistance. There's a legal assistance program of $95 million, which is a $40 million increase for civil legal aid for domestic violence and sexual assault victims and survivors. Transitional housing for victims, $95 million, which is a $45 million increase. I mean, there are many more aspects of the program, but those are big numbers.
I really appreciate that, and I appreciate the focus on that, and I think those are critical investments that we need to really strongly consider in this committee. Senator Moran asked you about fentanyl from sort of a policy perspective. Can I ask you, since this is something we're all concerned about, what is in the President's budget to address the opioid crisis?
Yeah, so obviously there's two sides of this, as you correctly said. One side is the law enforcement side, and the other is our effort to deal with opioid addiction and abuse, and to make people whole and to help them survive. On the law enforcement side, we're asking for $10.4 billion, which is a $342.8 million increase for all of our law enforcement. So this includes DEA, both for its law enforcement agents and for diversion control, which has been a serious problem, obviously, with respect to the opioids. Marshal Service, the FBI, which includes particular targeting of fentanyl and opioid trafficking on the dark web. Our Office of, or our Organized Crime and Drug Enforcement Task Force, OCDF, $550.5 million for their strike forces. The Criminal Division and the Civil Division, both of which provide law enforcement on both the criminal and the civil side. And then grants for the Bureau of Justice Assistance and the cops for anti-heroin and anti-meth. And for the healthcare and fraud and abuse control, so we have both the Appalachian Regional Opioid Task Force and the New England Regional Task Force, and we're asking for money for both of those.
Okay, and my time is out, but I'll just say this to this committee as well, that we all want to make sure that we're doing everything we can with the opioid crisis. We need to have a strong budget capability to invest in these programs. They are a critical part of dealing with this crisis. Thank you.